Okay, and welcome back to another episode of the Day After Podcast.
What's up, guys?
So here we are with part 2 of our Survivor season rankings. The previous episode that we did last week was number 40 to number 21, and now today we're going to do number 20 to number 1.
Yep. And thank you guys for anyone that has made it all the way through for our first video. You know, it was, as we joked, it was Avengers Endgame levels of length. But, you know, we're just talking about Survivor. So, yeah.
Yeah. It was over 3 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, that just goes to show we just love talking about Survivor. So put us on, Jeff. We're real fans.
There were definitely a few seasons that we talked about for at least like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I feel like I was talking to my one roommate about this today, and I was like, oh, since we're doing the top 20, it might even be longer than last time. Because if you're a big fan of something, odds are you're going to talk about it more and in more detail.
Yeah, because there were a few of them in those bottom 20 that we kind of were like, about, and we didn't have a lot to say. Like, we had like a few moments, but nothing huge. But here, we're looking at like the cream of the crop. This is the stuff that like you'll want to show people if they're watching Survivor.
Yes. All right. So, do you want to start with evens, or should I do evens?
I'll start. Because we are also starting with a tie. Gotta say that we are starting with a tie of number 20, number 19. So number 20 is Africa.
So and number 19 is All Stars.
Yeah. So yeah, let's start with Africa. This season, one of the old school kind of seasons that really it was all about being the nice guy. Like that's what Ethan's whole motto was. He was the nice guy to everyone, and ultimately that gets him the win because what was her name? Nalia, right? That was her name.
Nalia. No, I think Nalia was in Marquesas.
Marquesas. Oh, who was Kelly Goldsmith? That's who it was.
Yeah.
Ends up taking Ethan to the end because he's just the nicer guy, and Lex was considered the strategic threat.
Yeah, and also he was winning quite a bit of stuff too, and I feel like that's one thing about old Survivor. It's like we see the bigger threat, or like they base a lot more on not just like physical threats, but I mean, they usually do physical threats more so often because that's the thing. Yeah, Ethan is very, very nice, but who knows? Like in Kelly's mind, she could have been nicer or like has a better resume than Ethan in some regards. So, where if it was Lex and her, I feel like Lex would still like beat her out.
I mean, either of them, because they are guaranteed 2 votes in that finals, and with in early school getting a guaranteed 2 votes is very dangerous.
Crucial because of how small the jury was back then.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, no, it was definitely. I mean, this is a really great season. This out of the new school seasons, this is one that I could definitely see showing to a new person and being like, this is what the game started to like form.
Yes, especially with like tribe swaps and everything. Because I used to have a history of like not being the biggest fan of tribe swaps, but as I've grown older and like I'm not only used to the idea, I think it does benefit it because one with Pagong in season 1, it was like, oh, tribes, this way it like shakes it up a little and it's like, all right, now I have ties to these people, maybe I should jump ship, la la la.
And I do have to say it's made the pre-merges now much more exciting, because before, in the early days, I don't think there's really been a lot of great pre-merges in the early days of Survivor, but in modern Survivor, like every pre-merge is great. So, and I think the tribe swap definitely does help with that. Like, they know, like, okay, it's starting to get stale with this combination. Let's switch it up so that way it can kind of reinvigorate the season.
Yeah, I agree. And this season, other than Ethan and Lex, we also have Big Tom.
Yeah.
Crazy guy.
Yeah. Your head got a little cut off now.
Oh shit! Foreshadowing.
Yeah.
But so now you can see the poster in the back,
Mhm.
my roommate's poster. But he was a lot of fun, and he was definitely like because Survivor, yeah, it has its funny moments. Uh, I would definitely say he was like someone who was consistently funny, like even in All Stars,
Yeah.
like because he has one of those big personalities. In fact, one of my
Yeah.
favorite moments, it wasn't even during the actual show, it was during the reunion where he's just riding on a tractor and he has this big
Yeah.
his big herd behind him. He's like, "Woo!"
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
Just
no,
describes him in one image.
I would definitely say this is the best dynamic three in like Survivor history is Ethan, Lex, and Big Tom. Like those three, one of the best alliances, and of course it happens to be one of the first alliances that really, controls the game. Because before, and I would even say control, because like they really were like this is happening, and then everyone else just kind of like went along with it.
Yeah, like
Um,
because if you look at the first two seasons, yeah, there was kind of like certain alliances that were like more confirmed were, made it to the end. But, especially in like Australia, there was a lot of talk about flipping or like cannibalizing the alliance a little bit.
mhm.
I mean, with with Borneo, they were like, yeah, this is just a smart decision, and then sometimes immunities, and then also
Mhm.
with Sean's little alphabetical order thingy. He even said it just so happened that they all were from this tribe.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Uh,
yeah,
yeah. No, yeah, this is definitely a great season. Would you recommend it as a first watch?
yes, if I'm going to start them with old school Survivor, I do think like in the like I do think like the middle ground ones like season like 15 15 well maybe not 17 because I know it's like between some people 18 19 or like
Yeah.
kind of like more of the mid Survivor ones, so we get a taste of like old school and new school
Mhm.
Survivor because during that transition period. But I think if we're going like purely old school, I think this is probably the best one to go with.
Yeah.
Especially, I would say Australia, but there's a few things, but we'll talk
Yeah.
about that in a smidget. But
Yeah. What I usually say is I think Millennials versus Gen X is a great representation of new school. Token
yeah,
Teens is a really good representation of middle school, and Africa is a really good representation of old school.
I agree. I
Hmm.
agree.
Okay. Well, take away the next one.
Oh wait, so on Africa,
Oh.
I had it as number 16. And what did you have it as?
I had Africa at 23.
23. So
Mhm.
roughly kind of in the same area.
Yeah.
Overall it's a pretty solid season.
Yeah, exactly. And I do think because I watched old school I mean new school first, it is sometimes hard for me to get back into that old school stuff. But
Yeah.
like there are some seasons that are like still really good and better than the new school seasons. It's just I'm used to the advantages because I watched like 5 or 6 new school seasons in a row.
Yeah, no, I get it. That's why,
Yeah,
New School Survivor is a lot more exciting in my opinion.
yeah,
But now on to number 19/20, we have Survivor All Stars. One of the great things about this season, other than being like an all-star season, one great thing about it is that it's an all-star season that shows every, like a representation from every season. Some more than others. But then again, like you have someone who, if they started off in like any season, can be like, oh yeah, I watched this season, or like even if they saw like one season with let's say it was Pearl Islands, because that's the first old school I watched. Granted, I knew about things and stuff from like future seasons, but like, Pearl Islands, and then being able to be like, oh yeah, Rupert's here. That's awesome. That was a great way to like engage people, as well as that's the first time we ever had like, that kind of like thing happen where it was just like an all-star season with Survivor. So you get like really, really good picks throughout. I think there may be one or two people where I would be like, huh, them? But it has a pretty solid roster where I don't think there isn't any dead weight in the season.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this season. I
No?
really it bored the heck out of me. It was like, oh, look at all these cool people that I remember from previous seasons, and then it just felt like they were just out there. Like what happens in a lot of All-Star seasons that production's like afraid of is that they're going to get out there, and then all those pre-alliances and everything kind of just control the game, and they don't actually play out there. It's all stuff that happened before. And there's a lot of that kind of stuff that happened in this season, that decisions were made not in the game, but because of what happened outside of the game that were then brought into this game. So we didn't get to see that, so things were just kind of like, oh, well, this is just what's going to happen.
Fair enough. I feel one of the things that kind of like bring the season up is, yeah, there are some like quitting scenarios, but these were a bit justified in my opinion with, what happened to Sue and Jenna M.
Yeah,
Like
it does though put a very damp outlook on the rest of the season. Like, because they happen like back to back. It's like back to back episodes.
it is, yes, but I do feel like just seeing like Rob, this was kind of like his glory season. This was like to see, if you want to know why if you were to tell a modern, a person, like a new fan about, Boston Rob, and be like, and they ask you, why is he so great? This is like the season to show them.
See, I show them Redemption Island, even though it's a worse season. That's the season to say this is why he's a good player.
I mean,
This
it's
season,
a good representation of his skills, but it's kind of like what we were saying with Gabon, how Bob was so easily able to like crush it competitive wise. It's kind of like you put Boston Rob with a bunch of newbies that are like big fans of him or know that he's really good. Like obviously he's going to shine a lot more than
yeah. So I think there's a reason why he has yet to appear in our brand steals. He's just not. I don't think he's like that great of a player. Like, he's a great character, but I don't really want to see him play again. Like, and even his games that he's played, I don't think he's played a great game. But like he's played a dominant game, but he has never played a great TV game. And that's what makes Tony Vlachos great. Tony plays a great TV game, but Rob plays a great game.
Arguably, Tony is the better of the two. I think it's just, and I think another reason why he hasn't really been on our Brant Steals is mostly because we've seen him play 5 times.
Yeah.
And, like, I think in his prime, he was the best player. It's just that, since then, we've had so many more crazy twists and turns with the game. And it's hard it's hard for him to play a new season because, like, he has that reputation, and he's also played the game so many times. He's already a big target. Why he was voted out pre-merge in Winners at War. Even though, like, he wasn't one of the first, he was definitely, like, considered a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
however,
go for it.
There is another reason why I like this season, because a lot of people that were on this season, it was their last time like playing for like, there's some really good people here, like Alicia. I recently started rewatching Outback, and I'm like, you know what? She is really, really good, and I feel like she might make her way into one of our brand steals in the future. But like, she's a contestant where they brought her back and, you know, she did better. Um, and then, you know, people like, you know, Rupert, where he did better this time around.
Mhm.
And we got to see a lot more. We got to see, you know, like some of these people's last season
Yeah.
for a long time, because I mean, Ethan kind of broke that curse. Tina broke that curse. Well, Tina did it first, but like, you know,
Yeah.
for like the old Survivor, it was kind of like the final touch on a lot of their stories,
Yeah.
and it was like cool to like see it and be like, okay,
Yeah, see, it wasn't entertaining to me. It was sure you can be like, oh, that's like sentimental, like looking at it now, but I'm looking at it as if we watched it right now, as if it was airing right now. I would be like, well, this sucks. Like I like this could have been way better, but we're getting like 50% of what it could have been. That, and I think that's the problem with it, is that it had that high level like of the cap that it could have been really good, but it kind of just it was okay. Like the gameplay was okay. There's a couple character moments throughout it, but it wasn't like chock full as we wanted an All Star season to be. And
maybe
there's a reason we didn't really get an All Star season, like an All Star season till, you know, what was that, like 7 years later?
pretty much, yeah, 7-6.
Yeah.
Now I see where you're coming from. Again, this was like a long time ago since I've seen it. We're talking 2014 or 15, probably 2014. So my memory is still a little bit hazy on what you know, like on like, you know, how much I would enjoy it now. But you know, I enjoyed it back then. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, I'd say the only good tribal council was the Lex tribal council where he goes
The
home.
Lex
And
one was
that
really good.
that and that's it. That's really the only good one.
Well, I don't know. I feel like some things kind of led up to it. And yeah, there are some things where past relationships did affect the game. Like if we look at the Jerry and Colby thing, I mean, it was nice to like see that kind of like arc and like them butting heads. But
Mhm.
you know, I think one of the best episodes was when Amber pretty much won on the other tribe, and it was just her, which meant she was a sitting duck. And when they
Mhm.
lost, they were able to like convince. They were basically because and what made, you know, that Lex Tribal Council so great was because of, you know, this episode
Yeah.
where it's set up. It was like, all right, I did Boston Rob a favor, I saved his girl, and you know, like I think if we talk about like odds, what makes something incredible is like either the spectacle of it or like the odds they have to overcome. Amber, if it wasn't for Rob, would probably have been a
Yeah.
boot at that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah,
But that
I
just
guess
goes to show
that's
his influence on the game.
yeah, and I guess that also just though annoys me that Amber ends up winning because she wouldn't have won without Rob.
Yeah,
And any time that there's a winner that can't win because of someone and they're sitting next to that person, it's like, and I know it's a better jury. Like I get also even why Rob doesn't win, because old school Survivor doesn't care about strategy as much. They care about likability. But
yeah,
it's really hard to really get behind Amber as a winner
fair
after
enough.
that moment. Like she, for me, she became a pawn at that tribal. She doesn't become a player, she became a pawn.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the little downsides to it, is because of the fact that Amber does win, yeah, instead of Rob. But I mean, besides that, like, you know, just watching, if we're talking about like, we go back to like a good game as opposed to a good and entertaining game. Yeah, Rob, you know, does a really good job, you know, not necessarily on the entertainment side with that season, but also, but like being like, yeah, I'm the one in charge. I'm steamrolling this. And so it does make it a little sucky that he doesn't win.
Mhm.
But I mean, overall, I think like appreciating like his gameplay is what, you know, boosts
Mhm.
this thing up a lot for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, I see. I will say I probably judge a lot of players based on their seasons as well. Like if they were on a good season, I'll usually give them like a notch. But I just feel like he's been on 4 seasons or four seasons and then one other one, but we'll get to later. But
Yeah,
4 seasons that um just he wasn't really doing much. Like even in Heroes versus Villains, his whole thing was with Russell, but Russell was kind of carrying him through like that story arc in my opinion. He was just Russell's opposition. It wasn't
fair enough.
him being the entertainment side that like we didn't get as much Boston Rob as we did Russell. Like I'd say out of if we had to like break it down, we got like 70% Russell, 30% Rob in that story arc.
Yeah, I agree.
So
But
it's yeah. And as I said, I enjoy entertainment. I enjoy watching uh entertaining characters and just entertaining gameplay. And Rob doesn't really give me all of that. He'll give you
yeah,
like moments. He'll give you a moment or so in a season, but he doesn't give you it the entire time.
hmm, interesting. I
Yeah, but
mean,
I mean I think he's honestly only iconic because of the reunion where he proposes to Amber.
no, I think it's more than that because, like I said, he drove that game, and up until that point, he gave us the best game out of like any of the other seasons.
So you
Except,
think you think he doesn't come back? So you think he comes back in Heroes versus Villains if he doesn't propose?
I
If you
think
if
he
if
does.
you don't
I
have
think he
that
would come
moment,
back as heroes versus villains. One, because look at how he's personified as a villain through his first season, where like he was a little antagonistic, and then also the thing that cements him as a villain was the whole Lex thing. And
yeah.
this is coming from
Well,
someone that is
I'm saying he's a villain. I'm just saying I don't think they bring him back. I think
I
I
think
think I think that he doesn't have as much leeway as he would have with the proposing. Like that proposing, like Survivor still talks about that. Like every chance they get, they want to bring up that moment. If you get rid of that moment, he's possibly cut, maybe an alternate, maybe, or he just isn't a part of it. Like it's like he's on that like verge, and
I feel he would have still been on it because of how much, like I said, in old Survivor, he's the person that played the best game out of pretty much all those seasons leading up to it. I feel
yeah. But he's
at the
still.
very
I
at the
I get
very least he's
I
top five.
my whole thing is though, like you could say Rob Cesternino played a great game in Amazon, like the best game out of that group because he doesn't make it to the end and he doesn't win. Uh, but Rob makes it to the end and still doesn't win. And even though it's old school Survivor, they know that's how the game is played. Nowadays, we would be like, well, that's stupid. That's a better jury. But back then, he knew that they are voting for him. It wasn't like, oh, they're going to respect my strategy because that wasn't a thing yet. That like no one won based off of pure strategic ability. And so he was trying to do that, even though clearly that's never happened before, and he knows about that. So that's my thing is like he clearly burnt bridges at the merge and burned all those people for pretty much no other reason than to get to the end to lose.
I mean, look, sometimes you just got to risk it for the biscuit. And yeah, he played a cutthroat game, which is more appreciated like nowadays as opposed to back then. But I feel still like since Amber kind of relied on Rob and was like coasting, it doesn't make her as like it doesn't make her more compelling of a person
Yeah,
than Rob in the end. Like if
yeah,
I was on that,
I'm not saying she's a compelling character, but I think in old school game, I think she played a better game than Rob. And
I,
it sucks because like I also don't think she played a great game either, and that's the problem with the season is I don't think anyone really played a great game. It was just them out there with pre-existing alliances that's just kind of shaped the game.
hmm, I This is something we might have to agree on disagreeing on.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, well, I know because you have this like extremely high on your list, and it's pretty low on mine.
like on mine, it's number 12.
Mine is 27.
Yeah, that is a big difference.
Yeah,
But you know,
I consider Game Changers slightly better, and I don't consider Game Changers that good of a season.
uh, like I said, to each their own. But I know further up on this list, we can agree on some stuff.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we'll probably agree on this next one. That is a good season. We got Survivor Panama.
Yes, Panama was a fun season. It was also one of the things that led us to more modern Survivor was the fact of like, more like twist or reoccurring twist, Exile Island being one of them. And then also the thing that has totally shaped modern Survivor. Granted, they still had to make some tweaks, but the hidden immunity idol was the biggest thing. Like, yeah, it was kind of introduced in
Guatemala.
Guatemala, but it wasn't made as big of a deal
Mm-hmm.
just for like that like one or two episodes where it kind of impacted the game. This was just like the thing that really 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 pushed Survivor into a better direction overall.
Yeah, it's weird though because the Super Idol has never been played. Like it's never been used, and it's
No.
been brought in the game 3 times, and it's never been used.
They're saving it for some, or like the Survivor gods are saving it for something big.
Yeah. I mean, and Cowboy freaking came up with the idea to flush it, and he got out too early in Cook Islands. So
Yeah.
but that's Cook Islands. We're talking about Panama. One of the best tribes, the Kasaya Alliance, is one of the best tribes in Survivor. Like you got Shane, you got Suri, you got Aris, you got Courtney. It is a great alliance. Just to see them completely control the game. Like usually I don't like Pagongings. I enjoyed the Spagonging though because I didn't like the other tribe like at all. But this tribe was just so much fun to watch. Like they could make a Pagonging entertaining.
Yeah, I mean because you have a good core of people there. Aras, I feel like he's a very, very relatable person, in my opinion, where, like, I know Jeff doesn't like him, or it's not that he doesn't like him, it's just that I know,
he's too vanilla for Jeff.
Yeah, and as someone who can be seen as vanilla, I appreciate the vanilla kind of person for winning. But, not only that, we got Shane. Shane is just like a crazy dude. Honestly, if I didn't actually, fun fact. This is actually the first season of Survivor I watched in the sense of like, it's not the one that it's like the one I was shown, not the one that I started off with. Like it was a few episodes of Panama. When I was rewatching, all the seasons, I was like, wait, so this is the season I watched when I was younger. And so it also has a little space in my heart for that. But backtracking, so if I didn't know Shane was going to if I didn't know Shane was going to make it as far as he already did, I thought he would have definitely been an early boot. But like in spite of that, he made it pretty far, made it to the loved one, where he has a pretty nice loved one, where he had his kid with him, which is his entire world. He has a very funny audition tape. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have not.
It's funny. I actually showed it in one of my classes where it's like, oh yeah, why I like it is because it shows off his personality so well.
Nice. Yeah, no, I think Shane was definitely the character of the season. Like he was a larger than life character. Surprising we haven't seen him again. I know he was on the ballot for second chance. Surprised he didn't make it onto it.
Yeah, I was a little shocked, but
yeah.
No, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
No, I insist.
No, I insist on you.
No, I insist on you. This is your channel.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. I guess. I mean, did you vote for Second Chance? Did you put in the votes?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Um, he was one of the people I voted for
Okay.
because, like, I was familiar because I kind of like remembered him from Panama. When I kind of like pieced things together, I remember his face,
Yeah.
and you know, I think he's someone that should have been.
He could
I
have been
mean, I
on
don't
Fans
think.
versus Faves easy,
Yeah, that
or
one it would have.
Caramoan. Honestly, either one of those, I could totally see him coming into it. He's
Yeah,
even a
yeah.
villain. Like he could have been on Heroes versus Villains, but that tribe was already so stacked that I don't know if he actually makes that cut.
I mean, one thing, and to bring up what I said earlier, like one of the great moments for him was when you got to see him and his kid, where you kind of see him in a different light, and like yeah, he's a crazy bloke, and he'll scream that he hasn't had a cigarette in forever, but he's still like a caring dad, and he tries, which
Yeah.
I think is a very, very admirable thing, and one of the things that kind of like lessens the impact of him being like the heel or a villain. Whereas some people on the villains tribe, like Russell or Randy, they don't have a lot of redemption to them.
Yeah, no, Shane was definitely a great character, but the real player of the season was Suri. Like Suri, she was almost like the first boot of the season. Like she was this close, but she was able to flip that first boot onto someone else. And I forgot what her name was, but she had a really sad story. I don't know if you remember it at all.
It's been a while.
So basically, she was out there, but within like the last couple months, her kid died in a car accident,
Oh shit.
and so she was playing for him, for her kid.
Dang. I
So,
mean, how they started out too, like Tribes of Four. First time we got Tribes of Four, and where it was done by like not just like guys, gals, but also by age.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like it was slim pickings at that point. It was hard for like
Hmm.
it was when you're starting off in a tribe that small to begin with.
Yeah.
I mean, your shot is already kind of like
Yeah.
very, very slim as it is, as opposed to like when it's early on,
Hmm.
backstory doesn't weigh as much as usefulness to the tribe, which
Yeah.
is tough.
Yeah. Yeah, and
And
it sucks because it's done like that. The older women tribe, I think, just by default, is going to be one of probably two. That's going to like one of the bottom two. So it's like hopefully
yeah,
they would try to get up and make it to immunity, but you know they just didn't have a physical tribe. Like what are they supposed to do about that?
well, I mean, obviously change it, but which they
Yeah.
did, but you know, and I feel that's something where, especially as I've grown older, I do appreciate like the older women that go out on Survivor more. Like,
Yeah.
we'll talk about it in a little bit, but there's one character where I was like, you know what, I would have loved to see her more, but due to the events, she got voted out. But anywho, this season, not only another great aspect of this season was we got Terry. Now, I think he is one of the best, like, challenge beasts out there. I think he's definitely during like that era, one of the better players. Yeah, he won a lot of immunity challenges, but he was also a likable guy.
Mhm.
And I feel like and that like little like competitiveness he had with ours, or it was kind of like we kind of felt it was like it's either going to be ours or it's going to be like Terry, whoever makes it to the end. And granted, yeah, Terry had that idol, but he also didn't have to ever really use it
Yeah.
except for when he needed it the most. But at that point, it was a moot point.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, Terry, first real challenge beast. We hadn't really seen a person just win almost all the way to the end. Like if he wins that final immunity, he's the greatest challenge beast of all time.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
even now, he's still considered in the top 5.
Oh yeah, I still,
Yeah.
like I said, I don't remember if I voted for him for Second Chance because that's like in a notebook in Florida, and who knows if that
Yeah.
notebook's still around. But um, yeah, I mean, it sucked to see him go in Karamoa because like he didn't truly get a second chance. I mean, he had family issues, and that's way more important. But
Mhm.
to unceremoniously, be taken aside as like, "Hey, your
Yeah.
son is going through something." I definitely want to see him back and get
Yeah.
like a true another shot at it.
Yeah, they need to have Survivor third chances. Third time's the
Third
charm.
time's the charm. I remember seeing a one of those intro edits.
Uh-huh.
It was like third time's the charm, and I think like he was definitely on that list. I think it was also in the thumbnail.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, he's such a great person, and why Panama I think is definitely a
Mhm.
great season to watch.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, well, because he
like
was on that bad tribe, but he was the one person on that tribe that was like was
really,
good and entertaining and all that stuff. So it's good to see that the one person that we all liked kept moving on.
yeah, yeah. Um, not only that, yeah, he did very, very well. And then yeah, I mean, granted, it's not as high on my list as I feel like it should be. Um, I don't know how I think when we're moving stuff around, yeah, but I think maybe because of the Broken Idol, that was one thing, or like I don't know. I feel it's at 21, which is a very respectable like placing on mine,
Mhm.
but I definitely think it is a solid one.
Yeah, I placed it at number 17 for me.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because it's good season, good
Yeah.
season. All right. Next, we have number 17, and
Oh,
that's going to be Edge of Extinction.
yeah. This is also tied with number 16.
Yeah, which is Survivor Australia, which that's a really good one, which I'm currently watching in my marathon of it all.
Mhm.
But right now, Edge of Extinction. So I know you love this one, and I know
Mhm.
you love a certain character from it
Mhm.
because you bring him back every single time, and I feel like he's a lot of fun to watch. I think
Yeah.
he definitely has a lot of very fun tribals. I remember like how, like him pretending like he was being eliminated, and it was like, you embarrassed me in front of my family, and then he's like, psych, have an
Uh,
idol. Um,
yeah, no,
yeah,
no. Rick Devens is one of the best modern day Survivor like characters and
yes.
players. Like he is so fun to watch. Like any episode he is on, it will be entertaining.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, like I feel the same way about Tony, for instance. Like I think he is on the same entertainment level as Tony Vlachos.
I definitely can see that. Uh,
Because he's definitely coming back. There's no way that he's not going to be a returnee.
oh yeah, oh yeah. I think it'll be funny if he copies Tony a little bit. This just in, I just caught a shark, and the shark's trying to bite him.
Yeah.
Like I can totally see him do that. That was also another thing where he would every now and then, slide that in. He was fun to watch in that
Yeah.
regard.
Yeah. You could tell that he knew television and he knew how to talk to the camera, how to play
Yeah.
to it, how to play to the jury. He really knew how to basically make everyone like see him as that great character. And
Oh
he
yeah.
knew when to turn it on and when to kind of get it off. But like at a certain point in the season though, it had to be on almost all the time because he was target numero uno. Any chance they had, they were going to try to get rid of him.
Yeah. And I feel like one because I mean he was voted off pretty early pre-merge, and then when he came back, it's one of the things where if you come back, you kind of have to play harder because now you're just, like have to earn your spot and prove that you were meant to be back.
Mm.
And I think he's definitely someone that has who proved that he didn't deserve to be an early boot.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, obviously beating Joe, you know, but yeah. Not only that, but one other thing that makes this season great to watch is if you've watched every season of Survivor where it had like, you know, returning players in general, mixed with newer players, there's always one that makes it to the end. This one is the first one that kind of like disrupts that like status quo.
Hmm.
Like when I was watching it and I saw that you know, Kelly was, you know, like the last of the like all stars left, I was like, oh sweet, she's gonna make it to the end. She could possibly win this. And then some freaking Supreme Leader Snoke stuff happened, and it's like,
Yeah.
nope,
Yeah.
she's out.
Yeah, I think Jeff honestly ruined her chances because he said that she is destined to win this game.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like that. Even though if he didn't say that to the castaways, there's always that potential that like that spreads that Jeff Probst is saying this.
She definitely
And
needs to come back at a hardcore, like we're talking a winners at war kind of level of like
Yeah.
everyone's a threat, where there's not as many. Like it has to be a season where everyone is iconic.
Yeah,
Everyone
like
has
16 out of the 18 people could win. Like that's the kind of
Yeah.
season she needs to be on.
Yeah. Not only that, I feel like this is another season where not only her, but we got Aubrey, we got Joe, we got David, we got really, really cool people that they brought back from
Mhm.
Modern Survivor. And they introduced something that, you know, a step up from Redemption Island, in my opinion. And, you know, I feel it's something where we're definitely going to see Edge more so often than we would, you know, Redemption Island, because I feel it's especially with what they did in a later season we're going to talk about. Wink,
Yeah.
wink. I wonder what it is.
Oh, I don't know.
But I feel like Edge of Extinction is something where it will. It's something that is going to influence influence not every season, obviously, but I feel like it's something that's going to influence a lot of seasons in the future, especially returning seasons.
Mhm.
Because it's like you get that underdog scenario, you get the aspect of like, okay, these people can like, you know, influence the game, and then you get like redemption arcs. Like Edge of Extinction was also a landmark because we got our first person that was voted out the same season that they won, which
Yeah.
granted it was kind of like out of left field, but the same way
Yeah.
I think that like just proves the power of Edge of Extinction, and it gave us a unique winner at
Yeah.
that in a very very
Yeah.
unpredictable season.
Before the finale, could you have told everyone what Chris's name was?
No,
Yeah, exactly. I
because
mean,
he was like third one out.
yeah, he was third one out. But the thing is, if you rewatch that season, he has a lot of Edge of Extinction time. They actually give him a lot of time on Edge of Extinction to like explain like, oh, this is why I wish I could still be in the game, and then da da da. And so even though like they couldn't give him a lot of time, he has time. He has as much time as they were willing to give him.
Well, I can't wait to, because you know this was one where my life kind of like cooled down for a little bit. It was still busy, but kind of like cooled down after graduation.
Hmm.
So this is one where I was able to finally sit down and enjoy like Survivor and like take it all in for what it is. And I feel like it was a great, you know, like stepping stone back. And I feel like this could be, I don't know. I wouldn't recommend this as a first season,
Not at all.
but I do think it's one where if you've seen Korong, I mean, if you've seen the seasons where all these contestants have already played in, I think it would be nice to like show that person that, because I think it's a really good season. I think it's a very unique season, and it also has Kelly.
Yeah. So yeah, maybe like a fourth or fifth season to watch after you've seen everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, I always recommend if you're going to watch a All-Star season or a season with a returning player,
Mhm.
you watch the
It,
seasons beforehand. But that can
yeah.
also create a big web of like, oh, this season, this season.
Yeah, well,
Uh,
even when we were doing Winners at War, I went back and rewatched Africa and All Stars just so that
yeah.
way I like because I was like, how did Ethan play again? How did Amber play again? So I just wanted to kind of like refamiliarize myself with those guys.
Oh, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it's also with Edge, I feel fuck, I'm forgetting the Gavin. I knew his name.
Oh,
I knew it started with a G. You know, I definitely thought he was going to win that season. I
mhm.
feel like he's someone who did play like a nice game, like kind of like subtle. Like he wasn't in your face. Granted, when you have a guy like War Dog or Rick Devens there, obviously they're going to be more like,
Yeah, the TV is going to give them more time than Gavin.
yeah. But like, I like Gavin. I liked how he got married early and came out there. It's probably something I would do, if not with Survivor, maybe in my acting career, where it'd be like, okay, you may kiss the bride. All right, uh, I have like a body double in beforehand, and I'm like, okay, all right, I have to get back to set. Love you, honey. But like, you know, I think that's a cool thing, and it just shows like his passion for the show because we live in a world where we say, "Oh, but this." We live in a world of a lot of like excuses, and he was like, "Oh, I got on this show. I'm going out there." Which I think is pretty adamant.
Yeah,
Or like I think it's a trait I can really appreciate.
yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and also Ron, what's his name? Clark. Ron Clark, is that his name? Uh, the school teacher who gave Rick the fake idol.
Maybe I'm foggy on his name.
I'm pretty sure it's Ron Clark. I can check real fast. Yeah, it's Ron Clark. He was also a great character, but because he is also on the season with Rick Devens and War Dog, I feel like he got a little screwed on that front.
Yeah, he gets a little pushed, but
Um, but he was a great villain. Like he really took the moniker of being a villain.
hmm yeah.
Um,
Uh,
but I will say, as much as I love Rick Devens, the season does have its faults.
it
Um,
does, it does. I still think it's a really good season, but I feel like the good outweighs the bad
yeah,
more so than a lot of what because yeah, there's some great seasons with some like glaring problems, but I feel this one, the glaring problems aren't as big.
yeah. I
Yeah.
remember vividly watching this live and enjoying like almost all the episodes. Like there were very few episodes where I would be like, ugh. Um, but yeah, it is like it becomes the Rick Devens show. As we were saying, that is kind of a bit of a problem. Is this season becomes him, like,
Yeah.
and the fact that then he goes out, you kind of are just like, really? So, what was the point of us, spending hours being forced to like this guy?
Well, I mean,
Um,
it's kind of like a thing like if you're the biggest personality, you're definitely going to get more screen time.
yeah,
Also, I feel it's something where since he is coming back undeniably, that you know, it's also set up for future seasons because like if you watch back on like some older seasons of like players with their first time out,
mhm.
you see their like character arc, and I mean, this could be like the beginning of his character arc because we're not done seeing Rick.
Yeah, not at all.
Um,
He's
and
going to
so
be coming back. He's going to come back at least two more times. Like I think
I can
even if he
see
comes back again, goes out like second, he's coming back again.
he can be going out first, and I definitely think he'll come back again.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think yeah, he's guaranteed I think three appearances.
Yeah, hands down. If we was going to give a modern player that hasn't already have it, I definitely think like he could potentially be a four-timer.
Yeah.
Depends on how he does in the next two seasons, but like
Yeah, I
I
well
can see
one of
him as
those
a
seasons
four-timer.
has yeah, one of those seasons has to be like him doing almost as well as he did in Edge of Extinction.
Yeah, yeah. We can't have like a JT where it just like
It gets
diminishing
worse.
goods. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So we're
So,
only a few in, and we're already an hour in.
oh well.
Oh man. Oh boy.
In this, like I said, it's gonna be
Maybe we have to do another part.
another part.
Yeah,
All
there's a
right, blindside.
chance.
I mean, we can still like film this all at the same time,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
a
yeah.
little behind the
Yeah,
scenes.
I can cut it up into bits.
Yeah, but in that case, let's go on to what it tied with Australia. Now, as I said, I am currently watching Australia, so thankfully for you and also myself, so I'm not going to be totally embarrassed if I don't recall certain events. I'm pretty like up to speed with this one,
Mhm.
and I gotta say, if I were to make this list now, originally I had Australia at number 20. I think it would maybe outweigh Africa
Yeah.
at this point.
Oh,
It probably,
we forgot to say what Edge of Extinction was.
for me, it was 14th.
For me it was 21.
Uh,
Yeah.
I definitely think, I think especially it's going to age. That I think Edge of Extinction is definitely going to age when it gets older. That's
Yeah.
maybe some reasons why something may not be as high on the
Yeah.
list, is
Yeah.
because how are we going to, or like, how much are we going to remember it, like
Yeah.
5 years from now
Well,
when it comes
I
to like,
remember when this came out, I saw some season rankings and this was super low, and then I went back and looked at some of them and they like it's been like climbing up the rankings.
because it's so good.
Yeah. I think a lot
So
of people were just upset with the Chris Underwood winning, but at the same time, it's the most like we always complain about expected winners of Survivor. That
this
was
was
the
like a
most
total,
unexpected.
I know, exactly. I mean, because even if it was like a first boot, like a Natalie situation,
Yeah.
it would still been like, oh, the first boot actually wins, or like we thought that in our head, where as if it was a third one, we
Yeah.
don't think about it as much as opposed to like who was out first or who was the merge boot, yada yada.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but like I said, such a great season, and I think it is definitely worthy with being tied with Australia,
Hmm.
because I feel Australia is one of the best earlier seasons. Um, One, we get so many cool people, and I'm not just talking about the people they have brought back. I really like Mad Dog,
Hmm.
Marilyn, because
Yeah.
I was like, I saw her. She's like, she's tough. I feel like she was a great player. It's just that uh, Okafor, Jerry and Tina's team, they were they were just like on a losing streak, and it kind of like hindered, like, and they had to get rid of people fast. Where But there's just so many like interesting people throughout this. Kimmy, good God, she,
Uh,
I,
Kimmy is the kind of player that really grinds my gears, if you know what I mean, Ryan.
she's not the only one, because I think I, but I think that was the fun thing of like, all right, this is someone that's an early boot who I'm like, all right, cool. She's an early boot. She was kind of entertaining, or she's kind of like, granted, there were some annoying things. Like even Jerry was starting to annoy the shit out of people. I
Mhm.
mean, that's part of the reason there wasn't a begonging on
Yeah.
this season.
Uh-huh.
It was like, all right,
Everyone
Jerry,
annoyed everyone.
yeah. And but I feel like this season had a good set of characters. It
Yeah.
has some of my favorites, Jerry being one of them,
Yeah.
because I think she's a fun, kind of like how she's like fun to watch. She's also an actress, or I've looked her up on IMDb. She hasn't really been in anything past like the early 2000s,
Mhm.
but like it's a tricky business, as we can
Yeah.
both attest to.
Yeah.
Um, but like she's watching the season, she's an actress, so she already gets some pluses for me. Colby, like I still think I like Colby. I think he's really really cool. Part of the reason I brought him in our Brant Steels. He definitely has like the all American like hero vibe, which is why it was so cool to like have him back again in like Heroes versus Villains. Another competition beast. Also, Tina, who you also know is one of my favorite
Yeah.
um, players.
Yeah.
And then as I was watching this, Elizabeth. She may come back in one of our future Brant Steels. I'm not going to say which
Yeah.
one because we haven't made announcements yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
uh, watching her play, you know, she was a fighter. She was definitely on, like the outside of the alliance. Her and Kentucky Joe, just like, oh man, we're on the wrong side of the numbers. We're gonna get but like she never really gave up. And she's someone where I also like the fact that she was able to get a career out of it, being a host on The View for like so long.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then I feel the only downside I feel this season brings, and it's not even what happens in this season. It's just that two people with actions they did in the future
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
but if I'm watching this and I know nothing about what these people do, it's a good season.
Yeah.
I still think it's a good season. It's just like when I'm rewatching it, I can't help but like think, oh, okay, so this is what Mike did. This is what Jeff Varner does
Yeah.
in the future.
Yeah. Your camera flipped, by the way.
It flipped.
Yeah. So now you're like at a weird angle.
Hold on. It's because my screen has been off for a while. We were having tech issues. All
There it
right, am I
goes.
better now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gucci.
No, it sucks. That some seasons might get a little hampered because of what happens in the
In
future.
or in real life in general.
Yeah.
Like,
Um, and it's one of those things like, they can background check people all the time. Things are going to happen that's going to happen down the line that they couldn't have predicted.
yeah.
Um, especially with the Varner thing. There's no way I think anyone would have predicted that Jeff Varner would have said any of those things.
I mean, because he was benched for the longest time, and when they brought him back, he was semi in the zeitgeist because,
Yeah.
he's just been out for so long.
Yeah.
And like even then, he didn't make the merge this time around.
Mhm.
So still not like I was still kind of surprised they brought him back for Game Changers TBH,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like there was no way because even Jeff said I didn't think it was going to go past 3 seasons or like no one back then knew that Survivor would go on this long to the
Yeah.
point where we have people coming back after like a 15-year hiatus.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, this was Jeff Varner's best go because he does technically make the merge. He just doesn't
He
make
makes the
jury.
merge, just not jury,
Yeah.
which that's one of the things about old school Survivor, which I think is a little fucked. I get it because they
Yeah.
want like an even number for the
Yeah.
jury.
Yeah. Well, there's so many iconic characters that in old school Survivor, in my opinion, or at least like really good characters that go out right there at the merge but don't make jury.
Yeah.
Like you got Varner, you got Andrew Savage. I was telling
Yeah.
you last episode about Rory from Vanuatu. I think he was great. Um, what is it? Gretchen from Borneo.
Yeah, I like Gretchen. She
Yeah, so
was nice.
there was a lot of really great people who go out right there who never made the merge.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
never made
mean,
jury.
to be honest, when we're watching, because like when I'm watching, I'm also thinking of like, okay, because yeah, when I watched Australia the first time, it was before Game Changers.
Mhm.
So like, after watching Karamo, no, after watching Second Chance Cambodia, you know, I'm watching this season. I'm like, all right, so this is Jeff Varner in his heyday, and especially when I'm watching it now, I'm like, he never like had a storyline of his own instead of just like commenting on what's going on. It was
Mhm.
never like, oh, Jeff is doing this, this, this. The only time it was ever relevant was when, oh, there was already one vote against him, and Kimmy brought it up, and that's what got him eliminated.
Mhm.
Also, that was one thing about, Australia that I think was kind of cool, where it was like, all right, now your past votes can come back to haunt you. And I feel like, because that wasn't really explored in season one, so it
Mhm.
coming back for the second one, you can definitely see how it affected the game, which it did for like, I forget if it does it again, but like for two tribal councils,
Mhm.
one with Mitchell, the other for, um, Keith, or not Keith, Jeff.
Yeah.
Also, another thing, I feel Keith was someone that there's a lot of people in this season that could have been brought back. I feel Keith,
Mhm.
he's a little under, I wouldn't say he's under the radar. I don't think he has as big as a personality as other people, but I think people sleep on Keith a little bit, you know?
Yeah. Well, his problem really is that this was such a character cast. Like, there's so many great iconic characters that have come
Yeah.
back and all that stuff. That's like at some point they have to like stop bringing back characters from the season to get
Yeah.
other seasons into it. And I think that he probably just misses the mark on this.
Yeah, I feel that probably plays into it.
Yeah, so and I mean that's the case of a lot of really great seasons is like, yeah, there's one or two characters that should have come back from certain seasons that just don't because that season's just so incredibly stacked.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh,
Um, but that's why, like I said, originally it was 20. For me, it might be higher now. What was it on your list? Because I'm pretty sure it would have been higher if I had it 20 and we're talking about it as like 17.
I put it at 15.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
all right. So our next season,
Is my favorite old school season. I'm going to take away here because it's so great.
yeah,
We got Survivor, the Amazon. By far one of the most entertaining seasons of old school Survivor, in my opinion. And it's mostly made up by one person, and that is Rob Sesternino. I
yeah,
mean, we've never seen this on Survivor up to this point, and he is literally changing the game, and he is running circles around everyone. Everyone doesn't know what to do. He knows they don't know what to do, so he's telling them what to do. Sometimes he's telling them the right thing to do, sometimes he's telling them the wrong thing to do, and he knows why he wants them to do the wrong thing or the right thing. It's brilliantly, it's a master class in old school Survivor.
yeah. The gameplay was pretty good. Jenna was one of the first winner, or she's the only person at that. She's the first person to give up individual immunity and not get voted off because we see down the line that that's usually a dumb decision
Yeah, yeah. If
that
you give up
backfires.
immunity, everyone's just like, okay, vote that person out.
Yeah.
I think it's now just it's just something that's going to happen. Like everyone's thinking, oh, if someone gives up immunity, let's just vote for that person.
Well, I don't. For me, I would think that's sketch as fuck because I'm like, this person has a fucking idol. Like,
Yeah, I
because
guess that's a good way to draw out an idol. If you have an idol and if you win immunity, give immunity to someone else and try to get the votes on you.
I would be sketch as fuck for that. I'd be like, no, I don't fucking trust that. I
Yeah.
would start the whispering at this point. I'd be like, you gotta vote for this person with I would start the whispering.
Uh-huh. You know what would be a really good strategy? Make if you can get someone on the majority alliance to try to convince the rest of that alliance that they are going to try to make you give up the immunity, just so that way then they think, oh, we managed to do that, so that way they would then vote for you to then play the idol.
Could be there.
That's playing 4D chess right now.
Yeah, it's like that's gonna be something like Arrested Development levels of convoluted.
Yeah.
But
Oh.
but back to like this season, it's also one where it was the first season to do Battle of the Sexes, which I know that's something we'll probably never see again. Jeff has gone on record where it's like, yeah, I don't think we'd ever really do that do that again.
Mhm.
But
Well, the problem with it is it's so dead cut. Like this is this tribe, this is that tribe. Like there's no like chances of it kind of getting mixed up. It's like, well, you're a guy and you're a girl, and we're supposed to be at war with each other pretty much. So why
yeah,
would we?
not only that, it's like, especially with the social climate,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
I just don't see it happening. But
Yeah.
this was the first time they ever, did that, and I think they executed it pretty well.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah. I mean, this season has, in my opinion, the funniest scene in all of Survivor, and that is Matthew sharpening his machete, and then Rob saying, "I think he's going to kill us. Why does he need it so sharp?"
mind games, my friend, mind
Uh,
games.
it's great. And honestly though, there are some really good characters. Matthew, I think, is a really great character, a great goat. That because he was a goat that was being brought up for Rob, that then just gets snatched up by Jenna at the end.
Yeah, it was
Um,
like,
yeah. Butch was great. It literally burned down their shelter in the last couple of days because he kept bringing all that firewood over. He needed so much firewood.
yeah. I mean,
Heidi was a great sidekick to Jenna.
she was definitely a sidekick. Like, I feel like she's someone where I'm like, I would only be interested to bring her back if to see how she would do on her own. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I feel like they're not gonna bring her back though. I think her time's done. I don't think she has any interest in coming back. Um,
no.
but yeah, no. I mean, I enjoyed still seeing her out there. I think she was still good TV. She was still trying to give something to the cameras. Um,
Yeah, both her
so
and Jenna in
yeah,
a certain
in a certain
scene.
light. Yeah. That was, of course,
Um,
had to be narrated by Rob Cesternino.
uh, but yeah, I feel that this was a this was definitely a good one. My memory is a little foggy on it. Like, I remember people. It's just a little foggy. I feel like it is,
Mhm.
but I did remember enjoying it when I was watching it.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
I also remember one of the great votes is, I believe his name was Sean, telling Rob that he was going to vote for him at Final Four. That he was going to vote him off, and why would you ever do that in Survivor?
that's a dumb decision. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
So Rob is just like, "Are you kidding me?" And so then immediately he flips over again to get rid of Sean because he's not going to bring someone that he knows is going to want to get rid of him at Final Four.
no, no, we
Yeah,
don't do that. That's not smart strategy.
yeah, yeah. But he was still a great character. Like yet again, I think he was a great character out there. Really had that bro kind of vibe. Like, and that's the thing with the season. It seemed like the guys were in a fraternity.
Yeah, I do remember that, especially in the beginning. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
very, very broy. And the
The
first boot
pre-merge.
was kind of yeah, and the first boot was kind of broy too, where it was
Yeah,
like, yeah. What's his
yeah,
name, Ryan?
yeah. I think there was two Ryans. I think, right?
No, I know Pearl Islands had two Ryans. I think this was the first ever Ryan, and he misrepresented.
No, I think because there was another character called Rhino, and I think his name was
No,
Ryan.
that's Pearl Islands. This I know for
Oh
a
no,
fact.
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yes. Wait, I know more than Joe on a subject.
I know, right? That's crazy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's also something to do with Ryan's. So yeah,
All Ryans are the same.
we are. Ju- We're just that kind of like awkward guy who, may be charismatic,
Mhm.
but we always have a quirk to it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Uh, oh, and his name wasn't Sean, it was Alex. That was his name.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But it was a really good season. I have it extremely high on my thing, I believe.
I know it's low on mine, but that's because I don't remember it as vividly,
Yeah.
which I am sorry. but
I placed it
it
just
will
above Pearl
definitely.
Islands.
What?
I placed it just above Pearl Islands. That's how much I like this season.
I mean,
um,
I remember it being a good season. Like, I just need to rewatch it, and I'm like, okay, okay,
yeah,
yeah,
I placed it as my number 8.
yeah. I played it as number 26.
Wow, how could you? How could you, Ryan?
Just to watch the world burn.
Oh my god.
All right.
I
So
was wondering how
next,
it got that low.
me. Next up on our list at number 14 is San Juan del Tur, Aaron Burr, sir. Um, this was a season where they took. This was a season where they took the blood versus water thing the very next, like round of because they always film like two back to back.
Yeah.
They were like, ooh, the blood versus water was so good. Let's bring it back, but this time new people. And they executed it pretty well. It gave us a lot of great players, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Natalie, Jeremy, Reed, Reed's Boo,
Josh.
forget Josh, yeah. Uh, yeah, I think it was like a really good mix of players. Yeah, there's a little hiccup with the one professional athlete, I forget his name,
John
and then
Rocker.
John Rocker,
And,
yeah,
and his girlfriends. Yeah.
and his girlfriend quit,
Yeah.
which I'm like, okay. But I feel like it was a good season. It also gave us Keith,
Hmm.
which he was a fun guy. Granted, he wasn't the one that I believe it was his son that signed up and was like, "Oh, this is my dad," and his
Yeah.
dad was just on the ride for it. And
Yeah.
it gave us Kelly. Granted, it wasn't Kelly's finest hour,
Yeah. We didn't
but
really
it
see
was,
anything from Kelly. I think she had like 12 confessionals in her
yeah,
like 4 or 5 episodes out there.
yeah. But I still feel like she was very well. I feel like, yeah, she wasn't very well received because she wasn't really shown as often, but you know, boy, does she shine later on. And I feel
Yeah.
like I, I didn't like base that on my decision
Yeah, I was
too
gonna say,
much.
yeah,
Like I
you,
was like
you, you can't base, later seasons off of this season.
that, but I was like, yeah, Kelly's in it too. Like, and it just shows like why, how influential this season could be. And yeah, I think it was fun to watch. And then kind of like Natalie, who was like, all right, I'm not going to seem like the one running things because it was like, I'm just going to let Josh and Reed and Jeremy battle it out. And
Mhm.
then at one point, she's like, all right, in the midst of it, okay, one of the best moves was her pretending to be confused at Tribal
Yeah.
and, screwing with the vote.
Yeah.
Uh, and it really, really cemented her as a really solid player.
Yeah. Well, her strength really was not playing until near the end and then stepping it into gear above everyone else out of nowhere, and they
Yeah,
didn't see it coming. That was her real strength of this game. Um, I do have to say, when I watched the season, I stopped for a really long time because I just could not get myself to keep watching. Like the especially the pre-merge. The pre-merge was a slog. It's just kind of like get through it, and then the merge episode really does take the sail out of you because of the quits that Joey quits. Um,
yeah,
and there's just and then after that and then you're like, okay, well then Jeremy's going to win because at this point Jeremy was like had that winner's edits, and then he goes out after 2 more tribal councils, and then you're like, okay,
yeah.
well
And then we're like,
and then
all
at that
right,
point
so
I was like,
Joshua Reed. And
yeah,
then it was like, no.
no,
So it did kind of like, but I think that's one great thing about it is because it doesn't have that kind of like, because yeah, it's when we talk about obvious winners, it doesn't always, or like sometimes like the narrative and stuff, it's just like good to be like, thrown for a loop like that. And
yeah,
also because Natalie came from The Amazing Race. That's where a lot of people knew her from. Her returning from something else, and this was also kind of like off the cusp of Hayden doing kind of doing the same thing, but with Big Brother.
Yeah.
Where it was like, oh, she might not win because she was already on Amazing Race and did pretty well in that. Yeah. So her coming back.
Did you see any of the Amazing Race with them?
No, I have not.
They were very unbearable to watch. They were villains, but they were just, oh man, because they were the twinnies, and they kept saying it just like that, the twinnies.
I mean, the Amazing Race, they I remember watching a couple episodes, but it's very, very hashtaggy.
Yeah, I can't. I don't really like that show that much. I like Survivor is really one of the few reality shows that I heavily like. Usually I just like Big Brother. I can't stand Big Brother.
I liked Big Brother. It's just it's a big time commitment.
Yeah.
Like even when I had all the time in the world, I was almost derailed when I'm like, 3 episodes a week.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That's like committed, and that's why I kind of fell off in college was because
I just think that they cast like the stupidest people for Big Brother. Like they don't cast anyone that's meant to be a strategic threat. They cast idiots and then tell some of them, "Hey, can you be the strategic threat?"
Honestly, I feel like Big Brother, if I was going to suggest anyone to be on reality TV, it might be Big Brother because playing it, you might have more fun. You won't be as miserable.
Yeah.
And you don't have to travel too far. I mean, I think it would be interesting to be on Big Brother.
Yeah. I mean, I would be a first. There's no way the people that they cast on Big Brother would want to be around me.
No, they have like nerdy winners before.
I don't know. I just don't mesh well with like the majority of the people they cast. I can mesh with people from Survivor because people on Survivor are meant to be
more
from
strategy,
and they're meant for all walks of life. Like I can get along with those kind of people, but when you're casting kind of the big muscly kind of like bro dudes, and then the kind of like ha 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 girls.
Look, maybe
your camera flipped again.
Son of a bitch. I'm sorry, guys. For whatever reason, my thing does not want to stay on for more than 10 minutes, and so periodically I have to like readjust it. And it was fine for the first half until it decided to flip, but you're just gonna have to bear with it for this and next episode. Anywho, but I wouldn't sell yourself short.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would do fairly well on Survivor. I do think, though, I would be a potential first 3 boots, like somewhere in the first 3 boots. Mm-hmm. But I think if I get through that, I think I make it pretty far.
Yeah, it can be tough. But all right, we got sidetracked. So on, San Juan. Also, one of the seasons where if I wasn't so hell-bent on not wanting to go with a loved one, granted, I don't think I was that interesting back then. Mm-hmm. This is one I could have potentially been on. But I feel like overall it is a good season. Is it one I would recommend to a friend just starting out? Honestly, yeah. I feel like I think it's like a solid place, especially if like that person is familiar with Amazing Race or likes the Amazing Race. Like already have someone that kind of like nudges you in that direction. And it's also a great like starter because like I was saying, I said last time, these people you're going to see again and again. So, okay, you're going to have that like sentiment with that season and you're going to see it throughout when you're watching all the episodes, the returning seasons post that.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend this for a first-time watcher. Because I really do think the first watch of it, I think it's good on a rewatch. I just don't think it's very entertaining on your first time watching it. As I said, I quit halfway through. Like,
Same.
and it took me a long time for me to like want to keep watching it again. It's and I've heard that with a lot of people with the season is like this isn't a season that people want to keep watching on their first time, but then after knowing everything, then it can be entertaining to watch through because then you can see kind of the story arcs that they actually were building, but it was just so hidden behind certain characters that you just don't see it, and you kind of just are like, okay, well that's it, and then you don't want to watch anymore.
I mean, I watched this season live, so I never really got that impression. I also didn't really talk to a lot of people within the community,
Hmm.
but like I really enjoyed my first time around. I thought it was cool. That's the reason I placed it. Where was it? 11th on my thing.
I placed at number 22.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So a little bit.
we have a lot of differences.
I wouldn't say it's our biggest different, obviously.
Yeah, not at all,
Amazon.
but we have a lot. Yeah, the Amazon is the biggest one.
Yeah. But, I still think I think it's a good season. I like it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Well, I feel. Oh, actually, our next one, we have a four-way tie.
Bum, bum, bum. And that actually rounds up, well, that goes into our top 10,
Yeah,
actually.
yeah,
So I guess we're in that pivotal moment. Do we want to cut it at that point, or do you think we can power through? Because we've actually made some decent headway.
yeah. I think we should just keep going.
All right, it's cool.
Okay.
So,
So how about this? Let's uh. What's I want to make it so that one of these in these type four makes it into our top 10 and we talk about the top 10 in like a go. So
yeah.
how would we how should we do this without spoiling anything?
Uh,
We
I
could just we
I,
could
I
just do it
feel
by
it's hard because we're discussing it live.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
feel
We could just do it how I have it on this form and just put that number 10 as our number 10.
yeah. I
Is
feel
that
like
fine?
we can.
Are you fine with that?
I'm fine with that. Honestly, if you want, we could switch 10 and 11
Okay.
because I feel like 11 definitely should go in the top 10.
Yeah, yeah. Are you in agreement with that?
I'm in agreement with that.
Okay, cool. So, okay, then we're gonna do this is a tie three, and it's China
Philippines,
of
China,
and
and
Pearl
Pearl Island.
Islands. Yes.
Yes. So we'll start with what was down on the list, China. China, like I said, this is another one I would recommend to people starting out. It's
Same.
given us a lot of cool people. It's given us one of the James and his infamous vote out with two idols in his pockets.
Hmm.
Gave us Amanda, very, very likable person. Gave us Courtney, where I think she was a nice villain.
Yeah, great dry humor. Like that's
Yeah,
her thing.
I just remember they're trying to pray in the church, and she's like,
Uh, I'm a waitress
she
from New
was,
York. I don't pray. I don't do this.
yeah, she was she was definitely like she was a villain. I wouldn't say like she was like hardcore like she wasn't like hardcore. She's like I wouldn't say she's a B villain. I wouldn't say she's an A villain. I'm like, but she is definitely like in that mid tier,
Yeah.
or like not mid
She's
tier, but
definitely
like
not a hero. That's the thing.
no.
She's
I feel like she's definitely earned her villain stripes. I
yeah.
just don't think like she's the most evil. I think she's just like
She just
yeah,
wants to
she
see
kind
the
of
world burn. She
yeah,
doesn't care about anything else. She's just like, as long as chaos is happening, I'm fine.
yeah. Um, this was also the season that gave us Chicken.
Yeah,
Uh,
chicken, the best first boot ever.
yeah, I if we're talking like first boot they've never brought back or a returnee, I can definitely get behind that. Chicken is
Yeah.
like he's just like a fun guy. I knew like the returnees and stuff when it came to when I watched China, But like with Chicken, I'm like, oh, he's probably gonna make it pretty far. He's entertaining to watch. He kind of knows what he's doing ish. And then he was
Yep.
voted out first, and I'm like, well,
Yeah.
damn.
Damn.
Well, damn.
uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
and I
really
also
enjoyed it.
I kind of like the season because there was a professional wrestler who was on the season as well, who's the second boot. Her name's Ashley Massaro, and I remember watching her on WWE and being like, yeah. And then when I saw her that she was on the season, I was like, heck yeah. And then she goes out early, and I was like, damn, damn.
There were some, yeah, I mean, I think that's another great thing about this season. There are some like early boots where you can get behind, which is always nice. I also feel like the plot twist when it came to the switching of the tribe, it wasn't like, oh, we're just going to do it randomly. They were like, nah, volunteer your two strongest people. Guess what? They're swapped.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't even volunteer. They got to choose from the
Yeah.
other tribe the two strongest people, and so of course you choose the two strongest, and then you throw challenges. Like
Hmm.
that's the obvious
That would be the
choice.
smart thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, that's what they did,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
get rid of Aaron. And then they end up knocking rid of James because James just is. I'm pretty sure he just like by himself wins a challenge.
Yeah. Because like the great thing about James, and I think that was his kind of like downfall in Heroes versus Villains, other than him, injuring himself, was that even it wasn't the leg thing, which they even saved him from one boot. They kept him around one vote longer,
Hmm.
is because he's such a physical asset, and he's one of the stronger contenders on Survivor that like he's just a threat, and that's part of the reason he hasn't gotten far, other
Yeah.
than like his medevac, which
Has
is
he
also
has he won individual immunity? I think he did it in China, right? I don't know if he
in
did
China.
it.
Yes, he went home early in micro, so
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just hmm. Yeah, because he's the kind of guy like you look at him and you imagine he's gonna win like a bunch of immunities. Like he's the guy that you imagine wins 5 immunities in a row and makes it to the ends.
Yeah, yeah. That's why like they brought him back the very next season, which
Mhm.
granted they've done this before. Amanda also being one of them. You know you're a good you're a good contestant if production likes you enough to bring you back for a season where you will not be playing with anyone that will know who you are.
Yeah.
Um, because that kind of puts you at a well, I mean, for Russell, that was a huge advantage on him because
Yeah.
they weren't going to put up with shenanigans if they knew who Russell was.
Yeah.
But like
Uh,
for other people, it's tough.
I actually just looked it up. He actually has not won a single individual immunity. Not
Which is
even in China. Yeah.
unfortunate because if he's the perfect specimen
I
for
know.
that.
Well, I mean, maybe he's just built like it. Like I know that I don't think it's confirmed, but he might have been taking substances that help get him into that kind of shape. And if you take those substances and then don't take those substances for a long period of time, you know, you kind of don't have that strength anymore.
I don't know.
We'll
I
have to
think
go
it.
back because I think he wasn't as physically strong as like we imagine he is because like we see him as that big guy and we're like, oh, of course he's going to be carrying the team, but he never like he wasn't as strong as I think we like to give him credit for.
Maybe. Um, but I think his strength aside, he was also, other than when he totally threw uh, Stephanie under the bus.
Uh,
Like generally, like his first season, he was a pretty nice guy. He was very likable.
yeah,
Um, so yeah,
yeah.
um,
Okay, where did you have China?
I had it at number 10.
I had it at 14.
Yeah. And it's, yeah, so we both agree China's a pretty awesome season.
Yeah.
All right. Next up, we have Pearl Islands. And this is one of my favorite OG Survivor seasons.
This is a good one.
Yeah, this was actually the first one I watched that was like backtrailing because at this point, if it was 2014, so it was in between Cagayan and San Juan del San Juan del Sur, where I was like, okay, I want to watch some of the older seasons. I'm graduated from high school now. I love Survivor. Time to watch it. So I watched it on YouTube. And this was the one that kind of came up first. And I'm like, oh, I know that Rupert and Sandra are in this season. And I watched it and it was so cool. Like, yeah, I know there wasn't any like hidden immunity idols and twists, but like I really liked how it kind of like started off. You see why Rupert is so likable. His whole thing with the snake was it was nice. It was sweet. He was like he was in a way kind of like a gentle giant, but like, you know, he could still fuck you up.
Yeah. I know when he yells at John because John voted for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He can don't fuck with Rupert.
Yeah.
Or anyone he loves. But not only that, he this season also gave us Johnny Fairplay.
Yeah.
He's which we enjoy him a lot. I think he was a nice, like, he was definitely a good villain. The grandma thing is you know, I remember watching a list on like TV Guide. Or I wasn't watching the full thing, but that one thing of Survivor where he was like, where he told his buddy way ahead of time, oh, if you come on, tell me my grandma died. That is so fucked because as someone who was like close to their grandma or anyone will be to a family member, if someone goes on there, it can rub people the wrong way. But him doing that was so genius.
Yeah.
Evil genius.
He tricked the system. Like that he really like looked into the family visits and turned it into a gameplay move and not just a moment of everyone being able to be happy for a little bit.
Yeah, because fun fact, when I was working at Starbucks, someone who worked in the production of it, he gave me a little advice when I was making my self-tape for it. Because like he was wearing like a Survivor shirt, whatever. My one manager was like trying to take forever with this one customer, so I would make sure I talked to the guy with the Survivor shirt, and he was like, "Oh yeah, family. Make sure if you have your audition tape, include family in there." And so like, or a loved one. And so especially with the tape I'm going to be making, I just need to sit down and do it.
Yeah.
But above my mirror, there is my my youngest sister who looks up to me. I'm like definitely going to show that. Also tell how my grandma supports me and has supported me and raised me. And like, because that's why, I mean, people love people that are relatable and family and stuff like that. And so to take that and totally like twist it around and use it to screw with people, that's what made him like a fun villain for that. Also in his like, I wouldn't say he was bro-y, but he was more like, he didn't really have the bro camaraderie. It was more like bro, all by myself, which made him fun to watch.
Yeah. Yeah, and he was a big wrestling fan. He kept quoting wrestling, and as I said before, big wrestling fan over here. So, you know, and instantly, like, he says, "Woo!" And I'm like, wow, that's Ric Flair, and I'm just super into it.
Yeah, he was great. I also liked, this gave us the first returning Boots in a season where, you know, I think it was cool the way they did it because it was totally out of the blue. There was nothing hinting at it. They didn't tell us. It was like surprise. They've been kind of like on an edge of extinction type of deal, you know, hashing it out. And then they win the challenge. And then you see that kind of like camaraderie. And then you see both Lily and Burden make it so far into the game.
Yeah.
And I feel like, you know, I wouldn't have mind Lily winning that season, but Sandra won, which
Yeah.
also, this is my first season watching Sandra, and I gotta say, other than the fish thing that kind of like saved her for a vote, I didn't necessarily get the draw as much. The
Yeah,
appeal.
this was definitely her worst season. Like she was there. And that's
Yeah,
really all I could really say was that she was there and she yelled at Johnny Fairplay once.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's about it. Um
yeah.
and I mean I know I have some opinions on Sandra. Like I'm not a huge Sandra
We're
stan or
both
anything.
we're neither of us are like a
Yeah.
huge hardcore. It's,
Yeah. Like I wish that she wasn't on Winners of War. Like I wish that they gave her spot to like Vesepia. Vesepia would have been so much more fun to see her come out here and play.
I feel Vesepia should have replaced Danny, in my opinion,
Danny. Oh
Danielle.
yeah.
Uh, but however, I feel now Sandra deserved to come back because she was the only two-time winner at the
Yeah, she
time.
had to
So I'm like,
defend her
yeah, do I
crown.
think she's yeah, which I feel like it was like understandable why they brought her. First do I think her wins were as earned? No.
No.
Like
I
even in
yeah.
Heroes versus Villains.
Yeah. She's I think in my opinion the most overrated Survivor player.
Yeah.
Cuz she wins twice, but that doesn't mean that she strategically or socially or physically made it
Yeah.
there. She doesn't
She's
have any of
never
those. She's brought as a goat, but she just happened to be with people that the jury didn't like as well.
and and then they gave her in her returning seasons, they gave her so much like power because of her reputation. And then if you take that away, it's kind of like Pennywise in the sense where it's like, oh, we have this fear, but if you take away that fear, it can't really do anything.
Yeah.
And I feel that was like Sandra in a sense where they made her out to be the queen and therefore she was a threat. And that's why in like Game Changers and Winners at War, they're like, okay, she's a threat. We're gonna have to take her out.
Hmm.
Except Winners at War, it wasn't even that. It was because Denise swindled her so brilliantly
Hmm.
that it was able to take Sandra out. Who knew
Yeah.
what? Who knows what would have happened if Denise was decided not to do that or like
Yeah. Who she would have voted out Tony. Tony
yeah,
doesn't make the merge. Tony doesn't win the season. Then what
that's
happens?
exactly. So yeah, but overall, Sandra aside, I mean, there's not really a lot of things to hate about this season. I think it's
Hmm.
really solid. I
Yeah.
feel um, the one I feel like it was a good like kind of like balance between the two tribes. They
Hmm.
had two Ryans.
Yeah.
Granted, one of the Ryans did
Skinny
not
Ryan.
last very long.
I was rooting for
Skinny
Skinny
Ryan.
Ryan. I was rooting for him.
I was too, but alas.
Yeah.
Uh,
And this also has, as we talked a little bit about, Burton was one of the best, is a great one-time player who has yet to return
yeah,
again. Like, I
yeah.
want him to see Burton again.
When I was about to go into All Stars, because after Pro Islands, I watched All Stars. I was like, oh man, he didn't make the cut.
Hmm.
After because since I'm like rewatching everything and I get up to that point, I do have an idea of potentially another video where we talk about how we would cast certain seasons if like
Hmm.
we were in charge, our dream teams for like All Stars, Heroes versus Villains, the favorites for fans versus favorites. But
Hmm. Yeah.
we'll talk about that later. Back on
Yeah.
this, I feel like like Burton was definitely someone I could have seen come back in All Stars. And I mean, if they were bringing back people from season 7 as well, because granted, they were going for more recent seasons when it came to fans versus favorites, but
Hmm.
like, they brought back Fair Play, and so I'm like, they could have totally brought back Burton.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like if Fairplay doesn't come back for Micronesia, he's probably on Heroes versus Villains.
Yeah, yeah, because we'll talk about Micronesia, not this episode, but next episode. But yeah, because Fair Play, he was definitely like the biggest villain in old school Survivor.
Hmm.
Because like he was just, I feel like, yeah, there are some people where you just love to hate. He
Uh-huh.
is definitely one of those. Him and Jerry, I'd say, are probably the biggest like love to hate characters within the first like few seasons.
Yeah, yeah, agreed.
But yeah,
Uh,
on my
well,
list, I placed it at. I know it was high. Where are you? Where?
I think you got a little
It was
lower.
15. It was 15, but like I think that was the highest I did for all the like old
Old
schools
school.
though. Well, except for All Stars.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I put Pearl Island for me at number 9.
Yeah. It's a great season.
It's a solid season. Like I have seen the season as people's number ones.
hmm Yeah, it was technically mine for old school.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, I guess if you're like old school, this would probably be your number 1.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All
Moving on to
right.
the last of
And
this.
we have Survivor Philippines. Now,
Yes.
Survivor Philippines, this was one where it gave us Denise and Malcolm. It gave us one of the funniest early boots in the grand scheme of things with Zayn Knight. Don't
Mhm.
vote me off. Or like, vote me off, but actually don't vote me off. And, like they even gave him like a nice little backstory with his Frankenstein tattoo and everything.
Yeah.
It kind of like talking him up like we do with everyone on our Brant Steels,
Yeah.
and then they just get eliminated, like with Viola Davis and when we did our celebrity Brant Steele. I was talking
Yeah.
so much about how
Yeah.
inspirational she
Well, she was
was,
the
and
last
then
one we talked about too, like in the
yeah,
whole scheme of things. So we were just like, oh, she's gonna do great, and then she gets eliminated right away.
which is sad. But I feel like Zeke, he's someone that could have had a good story arc to him if he didn't play so terribly.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, this is a great season. Like, I would love to see them bring back 3 players who either got medevaced or got like screwed by the game in some way.
or
Like,
like with Terry, where he
yeah.
was,
Yeah, I think captain seasons work best when like they have a connective thing connecting all of them instead of just being
yeah,
like here are players that people like.
because that is something with Edge where other than none of them being like winners before, and 3 of them showing up on well, no, not 3 of them. They were 3 of them already appearing on a returning player season beforehand.
Hmm.
Other than being, like modern day players, they weren't really, there was no like connecting thing.
Yeah,
With this one, it was like a cool concept because it's like, oh, okay, so these people that were kind of screwed over has a chance to come back and, like actually get their shot.
yeah, yeah. And I will say this has, in my opinion, my favorite episode of Survivor in all the
Yeah.
seasons. And that is the Russell Swan, Denise Stapley, and Malcolm Freeberg, where they have to go to tribal that episode.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is. It's heartbreaking. It's sad. We still get great gameplay from Denise. It's everything that you want in Survivor, and it's
Yeah.
just. It's also just shot beautifully. It seems like they had like a real cinematographer out there who is making like a master class movie.
It was good. I remember Russell, being frustrated, looking so hard for the idol because he knew he was going to go because
Yeah,
he was already a target for being a returning player.
yeah,
And that was
and
kind of like the name of the game right then.
yeah, and the fact that he managed to avoid those first 3 votes was
Yeah.
still pretty. Like Russell Swan does deserve credit. Like he is actually a really good player, but he's just he has yet to make. Yeah,
Unfortunate circumstances
yeah.
led
Like
to
because in
his
Samoa he
elimination.
gets medevaced even though he was the leader of the tribe, and in
Yeah.
this one he just happens to be on a 6-person tribe where they just kept losing, losing.
Yeah. And then I
But
also liked how they just were like, all right, you two just split up. And then it just made Survivor history. Denise attending every single tribal council, and
Yeah.
our first team of people who have never been to tribal pre-merge,
Yeah.
which is crazy to
Yeah.
think about.
Yeah, I'm not usually a big fan of the underdog story, like under like the sleeper threats and all that kind of stuff. But Denise like deserved the win
Yeah,
because like if you go to every tribal council in the season, that is crazy that you made it to the ends.
you literally survived like hold on, I need to do a quick math. You survived 15 tribal councils to make it to that point. Like, and granted your odds vary from,
Yeah,
tr-
and, and she only
but
won one individual immunity, and that was at the merge, and she wasn't going to go home there. It's not like she had to win that immunity or she goes home.
mhm. She's just, yeah, overall really great. The fact that she was a sex therapist, I know, like
Yeah,
when I first watched it, I'm like, what? She is? That's because Ryan wasn't woke back then.
yeah,
Um, but
yeah.
it was like,
My writing partner's girlfriend is training to become a sex therapist, so every time she says that, I always think of Denise.
interesting. And Denise is just like, she's really good. If they did like a heroes versus villains instead of winners at war, I definitely would have thought Denise would make that cut.
Hmm. As a
Let's not,
hero.
yeah, and let's not forget another great character who it would her partner in crime, technically speaking,
Mhm.
Malcolm,
Yeah, who I
who
think gets more credits than Denise in regards, but
yeah
yeah.
well, I mean, because he was a competition beast, and then what did him in was the one challenge he knew he couldn't do because Murphy's Law. And I think Murphy's Law was even brought up during that season where, but like, like, and it was cool, like seeing this kind of like thing between, oh, is it going to be Denise or is it going to be Malcolm that makes it to the end? It was a nice, I wouldn't say it was a rivalry. If it was a rivalry, it would be like a friendly rivalry at that point, but they were like really, really close because they survived
Mhm.
despite all the odds against them.
Yeah, yeah. No, this was another great dynamic duo. Probably the best one since Fishback and JT. I'd probably say.
Yeah, I agree. And then uh, I know, and this is something we brought up with Australia, but Mike being there, um,
Yeah.
it's something that kind of lowers it a little. Like if we're watching, don't know anything about it, it's still like it like I don't want to say it's nice seeing him make it, but like if we're taking his story arc
Mhm.
outside of all the real world
Yeah,
things,
just Survivor.
yeah, if we're talking strictly Survivor, him being the first medevac, coming back on the medevac season, and then making it to the end is a good story for his Survivor career.
Yeah,
Um, since that was the theme of the season,
yeah,
and yeah,
yeah. I agree. I mean, his is probably the most iconic medevac of all of the medevacs. Like it was the first one. It was the one where production literally stopped being a show for a bit and was like, "Oh no, we gotta help this guy because his skin was peeling off."
yeah, it was like because I recently just rewatched that like yesterday, and it was like, ooh, that is like bad. And now I'm watching it on an HD TV. Eh, like,
Yeah, and what was so funny was throughout the season though, he was so injury prone. He kept getting injured throughout the
yeah.
season, like small cuts here or there.
I remember in Philippines, his goggles like breaking,
Yeah.
and I'm like, is it gonna happen to him again?
Yeah, I know. Like he was not he had no care.
Gosh. And then another highlight, or should I say two, but we got to talk about Abby Maria and RC.
Mhm.
Abby Maria being a good like secondary villain for that season, as well as like her relationship with RC. RC being someone that a lot of people would like to see play again.
Mhm.
And I'm forgetting the one guy. Was it Peter? I believe it
Uh,
was Peter.
I think so. Yeah.
He planting that little note in one of their bags and then starting to like shit between them pretty much
Yeah.
because they were best friends up until that point and that just derailed everything. Um,
Yeah. Pete is definitely an underrated villain. Like, cause he wasn't a big on-screen character, so they just didn't give him a lot of time. But like, he was
honestly,
still try.
honestly, yeah. Like I saw when I was doing or when I looked up a lot of like, heroes versus villains 2 list, um, he popped up on a couple. And then when someone chose Jason from Korong instead of
Mhm,
him, I was like, I feel like that should change. I feel
mhm.
like Pete definitely should have been on there,
Yeah.
but it was a good like he was like a good little antagonistic like force within there. I
Mhm.
definitely feel that he I definitely feel he is someone I don't think he would come back, but he's someone that some people would question why. But if you're like
Mhm.
really boiled down to it, you would understand. Like,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I think it was just he wasn't as big of an on-screen character, so it's hard for some people to like really be like, was he a villain? But like he was doing a lot of villainous things, but he wasn't expressing it over the top like you want your villains to do.
yeah, totally.
Yeah,
And then I'd say the last person we got to talk about is Penner,
of
um,
course.
who had a. I feel for him because especially nowadays,
Hmm.
not only because of his like backstory with his wife, but if we're talking about what happened then of like why he got medevaced, it was because he was going to lose. He could have lost his leg,
Yeah.
and that's a thing of like you have to leave, but it's so hard to say you're going to leave
Yeah,
because of
yeah,
that.
because he was still like there. It was just like it was just his leg, and it was like,
Yeah,
he was still able to do stuff, but like at the same time, if he kept doing it any longer, could get really
yeah,
bad.
and that's something where, as a runner especially, and
Hmm.
as someone where your whole body being like your product, losing something like that is just like hard, and so like him having to leave because of that and in a returning player season too like it was tough and so I'm glad he got his next chance with this and I also think he had a nice little send off. It wasn't like it was just like waving
Yeah,
goodbye and just
yeah,
kind of drew it out for a little bit but it was
yeah,
nice.
yeah. No, Penner is one of my favorite players to play the game. He's a great storyteller. He's
Oh yeah.
always entertaining. Um, he's one of the few people that can talk back to Jeff, and Jeff doesn't actually get mad at him. Like,
Joe, Joe, Joseph. Oh, okay, there you are. Can you see me? Are we good? Joe, Joe, Joe. I'm speaking to you. I'm speaking to you. Can you hear me now? Can you see me? Hello? Hello? Part of me is wondering if he can actually hear me or if he's just playing along, pretending he can't hear me. I mean, he's a good actor, so I'm pretty sure he could pull it off if he didn't know I was talking right now. I think the fun part is you guys probably wouldn't hear any of this commentary in his recording, which is unfortunate because I think I'm playing it well. Not to toot my own horn, but I'm tooting my own horn. Anywho, um,